To order. This is a special meeting of the Kingman City Council held at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. The council may go into executive session for the legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. I turn some time over to our city clerk, Annie Meredith, for roll call.
Mayor Watkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Samily. Here. Councilmember Pat.
Present.
Councilmember Savage.
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley.
Present.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Number one on our agenda is item 1A, next steps in the city manager recruitment process. Discussion and possible action regarding the next steps in the city manager recruitment process. I think we're going to turn some time over to Krista with our HR department.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and councilors and staff. Pleased to be here. We have a couple updates for you. I'd like to first address the interim process because we have some interview dates and times in front of us. The two candidates that were proposed by or submitted by Mr. Pickering's firm, IPM, the resumes have been sent out to you all. I proposed two dates and times based on their availability. Not every councilor did respond to my request for availability, but I have had at least one say that the 13th would not work. So we're hoping to do that on the 14th. Unfortunately, the 14th is also your council commission event at 5, I believe at 5 o'clock. So then the time change would be to do an interview at 1 o'clock and an interview at 2:30 for those two candidates. So I'm looking for direction if that will work or if I need to go back to the drawing table to get the candidates' availability for a different date and time frame.
Councilors? 1 or 2:30?
I'm good either way.
I'm good either way. Oh, 1 and 2:30, pardon me.
One, right, I'm sorry, 1 and
Correct.
2:30, that's right, for the two candidates.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Fine by me. Fine by me.
Okay, I'll go ahead and.
Mr. Ward?
Same.
Councilor Staley? I think we're all good.
Okay, I'll proceed with that and get back to them right away on that.
Thanks, Krista.
Wait, Krista,
Yes, sir.
wasn't one of them going to be a Zoom meeting?
No, both of them are going to be in person. Yes, sir.
Krista, can I please ask you to pull your microphone down? Thank you.
If I need to repeat anything for the council, let me know and I'll be glad to do that. Okay, so the second part of the interim process is to have a bank of questions for those candidates. It's preferred that we have the same questions for both candidates, but then you can ask follow-up questions or specific questions based on their individual qualifications or something that you see in their history. I provided you the sample of what was used in our previous interim process, which is a little outdated, but then also some other league questions. So I think they're very similar. I sent that out to via email. I hope you guys got that. Okay, so I'll send that back out. I don't need those questions tonight, but I definitely need input by next Monday. That will give me time to prepare for that Thursday interview, if that's acceptable.
Councilors, any other input, that questions you'd like to see? Councilor Ward?
So I saw the questions that you sent out, but we can ask individual questions beyond that?
Yeah, so what you want to do is have the same questions asked of each candidate, but then if there's specific questions about their expertise or their qualifications that you want to do follow-up, you can do that specifically, but you want to have the same consistent questions for both candidates, so you're having the same, on a panel interview, you want to have the same main questions, but you are allowed to delve down into a candidate's experience or qualifications.
Okay, I'll make a list.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anybody else? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Krista.
I'd also need guidance on if that should be in an executive session or if that should be in a special meeting.
The interview?
The
interviews
interviews.
can be in an executive session. So you'd open with you'd open with a meeting, then go into executive session to do the interviews.
Okay, so then we'll get that scheduled for the 14th, those two interview times. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next part, I want to kind of give you an update on where we are with the city manager recruiting, the executive search firm, as well as some of the information that I'll need back from council for direction. I've got identified at least 10 different search firms, or recruitment firms, pardon me, that the league has given that they're qualified, as well as the ICMA. So they're all qualified firms, national reach. Most of them do have several or more than one recruitment that they've done in the state of Arizona. So we're going to focus on the ones that have worked with the state of Arizona. The firm that we previously used had gotten bought out, but at least one of the players is still there. So it remains to be seen if that's their main focus, but we'll send out the proposal for them as well. I'm looking to tie the proposals, turn back in by September 22nd. That's in a few weeks. And then that would leave the week of September 25th for the council to review those proposals and hopefully come up with a short list. I'm assuming, which is not always the right thing, that you wouldn't want to interview those top, whichever ones come out on top. So you don't have to interview all of them, but you could interview any of the qualified. That's at least a recommendation that we would have. And then the aggregate results would be then presented at October 3rd's council meeting. And then we could interview those like October 9th, that week of October 9th, depending on your calendars. It's kind of projecting out there. So now we're in October, and we had hoped to have it, I definitely had hoped to have it done sooner than this, but again, time gets away from us when we're all busy. The council could then award a contract at that next meeting, or however long it takes for those deliberations and the actual interviews. So I'm hoping by the October 17th, we would have that award out for the executive recruiting firm.
Yes, Counselor.
It seems like if we had special meetings for these instead of waiting for council meetings, we could get this completed a lot faster. That would be my preference.
I'm happy to accommodate with that. I mean, I think we can get that together. So I'll get the proposals due. I'll rework this time frame to kind of every step we can and get that special meetings.
Also, if you could let these companies know that we would be looking to interview them maybe even on October 4th.
Okay.
So that's part of the proposal, is they already need to plan on being available, and if they're not, they just won't be qualified.
Yep, that sounds good. Mr. Mayor, would you say that that is a Zoom for them, or I mean, if they are out of the area, is that going to be okay with the council?
I think we need to be flexible enough to do that. We'd love to have them in person, but I think, yeah, I mean, or personal contact, but yeah, especially with the executive firms, Zoom, if they need to.
Okay.
And then also, along with what Councilor Segley said, is the rest of council okay with that, of having special meetings to expedite the process? Okay.
It'd be great. In theory, couldn't we approve it on the 3rd, or even approve it sooner than that, do a Zoom interviews the next day, vote on it that same day after those interviews, and knock it all out?
Yeah, I'm trying to be conscious of everybody's time, but I love that idea because, again, I know the urgency that this represents, so, okay.
For me, I can't speak for everybody. This is a priority, so I will make time in my schedule to get here and take care of that.
Very good. Thank you.
I think we're all in agreement.
Okay, so I had just kind of laid out that timeline based on that, so we'll move everything up, hopefully, and still meet that timeframe. As far as when I work with the executive recruitment firms to get their qualifications, I kind of have a template already. I think that'll be okay just to use a similar template. Again, you'll see everybody's stuff, but at least you'll have something to rate them on, because I think that'll be important, that you have the same rubric or the same grading system as what, you're all looking at either 1 to 5 or 0 points, so it'll all be equal, if that makes sense. All right, so the next part that I wanted to talk about is the actual job description. As we move forward, we're going to need to get that solidified. I had one counselor submitted their draft, if you will. I found another kind of updated one, and I also provided you the one that was existing. And I just wanted to get feedback on the job description. I'm not sure. I've sent that out a couple times. Are we
Counsel?
okay with the draft one? I had one counselor supported that draft one.
I support draft 1. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll just say, I feel strongly that we maybe need to do something a little bit differently this time in order to have a better opportunity to get somebody that is what we're looking for. And I wanted to put more information in this so that the expectation is open and honest from the get-go. This is what we want. You need to have a good relationship with the council. You need to communicate. You need to work on economic development, problem solving, community pride and quality of life, large infrastructure projects, airport, financial expertise, effective department management, staff development, public safety leadership, vision and credibility, exceptional customer service, complex complaint resolution. I just feel like if right out of the gate we say we want a dynamic person that can help us get through our growing pains and our infrastructure and all these things, then it's not a surprise to them when they get here and we're holding them accountable to being this person. So that's, I know it's long, but I thought it was important to have a lot of detail.
Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor.
isn't that, I'm looking at draft 1, and that is inclusive in draft 1.
Yes.
Okay,
that is,
so you support draft 1?
yes.
Okay, perfect.
Krista, Vice Mayor and I were talking about it with a meeting with Tina today. There was one qualification. Do we want to bring that up in this audience right now? About living in the city limits?
Yes, so I did speak with the attorney, and Carl Cooper has said that is in the ordinance.
Okay.
And so I guess if you need direction, if you needed to change that, but it does say within 6 months of taking the position, it's within the city limits.
So we had some conversation, and I don't know how the rest of the council will take this. Because we have so many areas that are just over the city limit border that this potential candidate could live, we were thinking, how does the council feel about like a 10-mile radius or a 10-mile, there are desirable areas that we don't want to exclude them from being able to reside there just because they have to be in the city limits. So is that possible to change that to where it's not vast, it's not within 30 miles, so they could live in another town, but where
Or
they
even out
could
in
live
Golden Valley?
Yeah.
I mean, we would like them, but for example, up in, not Cedar Hill Estates, but Juniper Lake Estates, which is just barely out of the city limits. But there's some nice areas that are expanding, also up Alpine Mountain Road, just past 3 mile marker, that's where the city limit stops. There's some development areas going on there too. And so that was thoughts on that. So,
I'm uncomfortable with that. I think we have to live here, we have to live in the city limits, and the decisions that are made are supposed to be focused on on the citizens here. And I think that if you want to be our manager, you should love Kingman enough to live within the city limits. You should be dedicated to the position and live in the city limits. And that's I don't know.
Well,
that's just my personal opinion. I think they should live in the city limits, just like we have to.
And I concur with that statement, but I also feel like there could be some limitations, so.
some flexibility maybe. Rest of council?
I-
Councilor Walker?
Yeah, I would be okay with it if they live in the greater Kingman area, Lazy YU,
Fountain
Juniper
Hills.
Lake, Fountain Hills. I mean, they're part of our community still,
Right.
so I would be okay with that. But yeah, go outside of me, I don't know, Golden Valley, but definitely not Bullhead or Havasu. They need to live in the
Right.
greater Kingman area.
And Attorney Cooper, this is only an ordinance that we have, and so we could make the modification ourselves. It's not like a state statute.
That's correct.
And do we have to bring that to next city council, for example, to make that change?
If that's the direction from council, I will draft change the current ordinance, the city code,
Okay.
and I can add a radius of the city limits, whatever council so desires.
Okay,
I think that was also in the contract, wasn't it? They had so much time to move into the city limits.
I think there was something in that, but I don't recall at the top of my head, but
How would everyone feel about leaving it as is? And then if we have that right candidate that wants to live just outside, for the right person, I maybe would feel better about making that change, but just to change it forever and no, you don't have to live here, that hurts. So I would be amenable to a compromise and say, let's let's go out and find somebody, and then if they don't end up right in the city limits, maybe we can, then I would support.
So we
The
can-
right person, I would support it.
We can customize it for the right person.
Yeah.
I don't know, when I first moved out to the Kingman area, it was actually up in Chaparral Mesa, which is county, outside of city limits, because I couldn't find a house in Kingman. But when I was able to find a house, I moved into the city because I wanted to be here. I would hate to basically bar someone who's qualified from getting that position if they had the same type of difficulty that I had of finding the right house inside at the right time. So I'm more along the lines of going with the mayor and vice mayor on this one. Maybe it doesn't have to be 10 miles. Maybe it could be a little bit less than that, because, well, I mean, I'm fine either way. But if someone wants to live in the city, they will. I would like, but I don't want to preclude them just because of a restriction.
And obviously, we can encourage them strongly, but and Councilor Saley, I totally understand where you're coming from too. It makes a lot of sense to live in the city limits, and maybe we customize it. But before we waste any more of Mr. Cooper's time, so we can give him some guidance of what to do, I'm sort of trying to we need to get a temperature of the rest of the council. So, Councilor Ward, Councilor Savage?
I'm okay either way.
With modifying it?
I would, yeah, I would like to see them in the city, but I'm okay if we get the right person.
Okay. So, okay, Councilor Savage.
I kind of look at it this way with the commissions. I believe the majority of them, most of them but one, have to
Good
be
point.
within the city. And granted, this position is much more important to the operation of the city. I think just don't go over Surbat Mountains, don't go that way, stay right here in the basin, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Carl, I think you have the guidance you need.
I will try and probably do a distance instead of trying to, geographic might be a little bit tougher without being very specific, but just when you do an ordinance change, it does take 30 days for it to go into effect.
Okay.
So that's probably why if you want to do it, you want to do it sooner rather than later, but obviously we're still early in that process, so it's not like it's got to be a huge rush, so. But it might be something that we want to, if the change is going to happen, it needs to be noted because the recruitment process is starting and you
That's
don't want to
part
say
of it.
you have to be in the city limits, then we change it. That just might change some of your demographics of your applicants, so.
And do you make that geographic mark from City Hall, or do you make it from the center of Kingman, which is more up by Walmart?
And generally, I think you just go by city limits, the boundary,
Is that what
exterior
you want to do?
boundary.
Okay, outside, okay.
Because that
Sounds
does
good.
change a little bit.
It
but
does.
I don't know if that's necessarily the best option, but I'll look and see if there's some folks out there that have done something similar and see how they've done it, but it seems like mostly it's the city limit boundary, so.
Okay,
So are we looking at a mileage? Is that what you're looking for? Miles?
Yeah,
radius
I
outside of
would
the
guess,
city?
you're probably looking
Somewhere
at
around 5?
5 to 10 miles
Okay.
is probably what you're looking at, so.
Okay.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Okay, Krista,
All right.
we will be waiting for that to come through.
Perfect. So clarification, so we did opt for the draft option 1, is that correct? Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to bring up is the salary range. We don't have to say what we're going to pay the manager because that's a contract negotiation, but I just wanted to be clear when we advertise, we would usually say we're looking to hire in somebody at the mid, 150s, 180s, something like that. And I kind of provided you the salary range from our consultant, and it's got the incumbents, like the midpoint there. I didn't know if you had a range that you wished to direct me to, so when we start working with the executive recruitment, or if I open up internally, not internally, but in-house, I like to have that salary range in mind.
Council, do we want to stay within the range that Krista sent out to us? Which for knowledge is between 180 and 220, correct? Okay.
My only concern with that, and I know we have to be competitive, so as just one concern is that 180 mark is where we're paying right now, and we have to have room to grow. So, making that a starting point means that we're gonna have to go, you know, quite a bit above that, and then when you think about increases and those kind of things. So I'm not necessarily against it, and we need to be competitive to get some good applicants, but we should be mindful of the fact that that's the bottom, you know?
Okay.
I'm fine.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm fine with the 180 to 220 range.
Okay. Council? Sounds like we're good with that then.
I just,
Oh, Vice Mayor?
Mayor, well, I was just looking at the email. It says, are we going with the HR,
The
the HR now?
the HR, no, yes, that's the,
150, 230 to 225, 339?
correct. And then there was some specific recommendations that he had provided.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I support that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Anything else?
I think that's all I had to cover. I don't know if you have any questions about anything that I've been working on or
Council?
like that.
Any other questions for our HR department, for Krista?
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much.
Krista.
You're welcome.
If nothing else, can we have a motion to adjourn then?
I'll make that motion.
A second? We are adjourned. Okay. We better be adjourned, huh?